And I just think it's the best way to have a rich experience in the world is traveling in some way, shape, or form. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today is kind of traveling on the local level and traveling on the international level when we can do that again and just exploring the world around you. So you can go to the next one. This is something I found really shocking. Even though a record number of Americans traveled abroad last year, there's still 11% of Americans who've never even left their home state, which is just shocking to me with how you can get across borders so easily. So that's just something I found interesting to kick off with. And you can go to the next one. And this is just a little of me. Aaron already gave me a great intro, but I was a journalism student at Seattle University. Travel writing was my dream. I did not think it was a real job at all. And then I started working in the travel field and started writing about outdoor adventure travel. And now I've expanded to writing about travel around the world. Before COVID, I was flying, 20, 30 times a year. Obviously, I've only flown twice in 2020, I think. But so my ways of traveling have changed, but I am still traveling and doing so safely. And that's kind of the ideas I'm going to share with you. And you can go to the next one. These are the things people always ask me about my traveling history, so I thought I would just share them up front. I have a goal of seeing all 50 US states, so I'm at 44 right now. I'm almost there, and 26 countries, which isn't as many as I'd like it to be. But people always ask my top favorites of where I've been, and it's definitely Ireland, the state of Maine, and Switzerland. And I'll talk a little about those places today. And then I write for a variety of magazines and websites that you may have heard of, including Trip Savvy, Trivago, Marriott, Women's Running, and I'm the editor of Outdoor Sports Guide. So you can go to the next one. Okay, so how I start planning a trip is gathering inspiration, and that's figuring out where you want to go. It's a big world, there's so many places to go. And so I usually start with Pinterest, Instagram, and magazine articles online. And this is to kind of find what those destinations are that maybe are less discovered, that aren't Paris, that aren't as well known yet. I look for those anyway to find trips without crowds. And that's using everything from hashtag searching online to creating kind of dream boards on Pinterest. And if you don't use Pinterest, I highly recommend it as just a way to gather what you're interested in for anything from your house to travel. You can create boards of ideas and put them all in one place. Because if you're anything like me, I see cool things pop up and then forget about them immediately. I love Pinterest as a way to corral ideas for trips into one place. When you see an interesting article, you can save it there. And then once you have kind of your list narrowed down to 3 trips you're thinking of taking, I always try to prioritize those and see what it's going to take to do those. And then once I've figured out kind of which trips I'm looking to take, whether those are locally or big, my favorite tip is Google Maps. I think we all think of Google Maps as just being a navigation tool, but it's actually become key to trip planning for me because I will add everything I'm interested in a city or a state on my Google map. So you can create wish lists of places you want to go, your favorite places you have been, and then even curated lists of, restaurants in Philadelphia. And you can share those lists with other people. You can use them yourself. So whenever I hear of a new coffee shop opening or something like that, I just add those all to my Google map. And then when I find myself in those destinations, I have information at the ready to be at some really cool places. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And we all know that global travel is largely on hold, which is sad, especially if you've had to cancel a trip like many of us had. But something I really like to suggest is staycations. I don't necessarily call these staycations because it's not necessarily saying right in your town that you live in, but somewhere maybe within 2, 3, 4 hours that you can go and make a memorable getaway. And one way I kind of find these is I think we're all bad at being tourists in our local area sometimes. So I like to go to a tourism office or a hotel and look at those cheesy brochures that are on the wall or magazines and collect them and find places that you've never been, that you've been meaning to go to a museum or a site or a hiking trail, any of those things forever. I like to round that all up and corral it to help me plan those local straycations, as I call them. And you can go to the next one. And one place I've been going on a lot of my staycations is national and state parks. But if you've read the news about many of the parks like Zion, they've been a zoo since COVID began. So if you're thinking of going to some of these places like Yellowstone, Zion, I've found some key tips that seem to work in every single park for avoiding the crowds. And that's been at Yosemite, Zion, all of these parks I've been to this summer and have had a really positive experience during COVID. And I think this is true all the time. So my number one suggestion is to go later in the day. People love to go to parks, hikes, trails, places like this early in the morning. And so that's actually when the most people are there. So I like to go into the park in the afternoon, and you will find you generally have the place to yourself. We've been completely alone on the busiest hiking trails in Zion National Park just by going at 3 p.m. So that's one way to have that really great national park experience. My next tip that is new for me is biking in the parks. Most national parks have paved biking paths and great access for cyclists where you can pedal around the park, like in Yosemite Valley, on some really easy trails. And they even have electric bikes now on some of these trails. And you can explore without having to move your car and repark. And it's a great tip too that parks like Yellowstone actually open the park to bikes only the first week of the season. So you can go and be completely alone in the park on a bike and not worry about cars or traffic, anything like that. So that changes every year based on snow, but it's something you can Google to see for planning ahead when the park's open to get that access before cars do. And one thing people might not know too in these parks is how little of the terrain is used and explored. 95% of park visitors use only 5% of Yellowstone National Park. I find that so surprising, and most people don't even venture 100 feet off the road. So that means if you're willing to just take a few extra steps, you won't find anyone on the trails, or just visiting some sites that are not the top 5 iconic ones. It gives you an entirely different park experience than you'll have where the majority of the visitors are. You can go to the next slide.
I have a question on the national parks, especially the popular ones like Yosemite and stuff. Do you have to get a permit to go there first? Do you have to really plan ahead a lot, or can you just like show up?
You know, every park is a little different, especially during COVID. Yeah, and please feel free to interrupt me with questions too. But in Yosemite, they've had a reservation system throughout COVID that I've used twice, and it's been really great to eliminate crowds, but you did have to book a month in advance. However, they also had reservations the week of that would pop up 48 hours in advance, and you can find that at many parks. Parks like Zion National Park, you don't need a reservation to go into the park, but you do need a reservation for the shuttle. However, the shuttle is first come, first serve after 3 p.m. when the crowds leave. So we went to Zion with no reservations, and we took the shuttle after 3 p.m. So I think there's a lot of ways around that. And in parks like Zion, the shuttle is only for a very small part of the park. Most of the park, you can drive your own car, but I think most people aren't aware of that. So we spent very little time in that touristy section of the park, and most of it outside in those zones that a lot of the tourists aren't going to see. So yeah, I would say most parks are pretty wide open without reservations, but the best way is recreation.gov, and they'll tell you which of those parks you need reservations for and if there's any closures. I know in California, for instance, many parks, both on the state and national level, were closed due to wildfires and stayed closed for 1 or 2 months. So I will say before you plan anything, it's really good to check those websites to make sure the park you want to visit is actually going to be open. Did anyone else have a question on these topics so far? Okay. So my next big tip is glamping. I don't know if any of you have been glamping yet, but this nickname is for glamorous camping. And the tent in this picture is where I stayed in Yosemite 2 weeks ago. And inside that tent were the most comfortable mattresses I've ever slept in. They were better than my mattress at home. It was incredible, really comfortable. And that is a big trend we're seeing, especially during the COVID times, as a safe way to travel, where you can have your own private tent, private experience, get the camping vibe without sleeping uncomfortably on the ground, and also feel really safe because you're in your own space. So we've seen those retreats popping up all over, and a lot of them are in national parks and scenic destinations that give you much better access to the park than a traditional hotel would be, that are much further away. Like in Yosemite, you're going to find that the hotels are about an hour from the valley, where if you stay at some of these glamping places, you can get much closer to the park, the sites, and the access. Okay, you can go to the next one. This is another quote that I just wanted to share and love, because I think the diversity of America, it's such an amazing time to explore it and experience it. I personally am guilty of traveling further away instead of exploring our own backyard. And what I've actually found some great joy in during this COVID era is the beauty of America. I've been exploring Nevada to some places I've never been and found incredible empty places that I would have never known existed if COVID had never happened. So I'm trying to find the perks in all of that. And I think it's a great time for you guys as well to find those nearby destinations that you wanted to explore but have pushed off. And you can go to the next slide. And I want to talk a little about gear and some of my favorite things. A lot of the writing and the work I do is about testing the best gear for travel. And so this year I've been testing a ton of different products, and these were a few that kind of rose to the top of the pile. The first is called Sud to Go. It's a water bottle that has a built-in soap system. And I bring it in my car now on any trip because you can wash your hands on the go. If you're stopping at a porta potty or something on a road trip where there is not good access to hand washing, this is an amazing tool that is so easy to use that now I take it camping and on every trip. And I think it's something like $13, really reasonable. And then both this pillow and blanket I pack on any road trip or plane trip even, because they pack down super small and you can throw it, and it's just going to give you that at-home comfort on any trip you go on. So worth the wait in any suitcase or bag. And then you can go to the next one. So now I'm moving into a little bit more of international travel. These are a few of destinations that I would add to my bucket list. Does anyone have any destinations they have on their bucket list that they're waiting to plan a big trip to?
That first word, yeah, right there, Switzerland. It's on
Awesome.
my bucket list and the top of the priorities.
Yeah, Switzerland is truly amazing. I highly recommend adding that to a bucket list for sure. And it's one of my.
Sorry. Oh, I was going to say Italy and basically all of Europe. And we actually had, in one of these silent auctions, got a trip to Africa, and we had to postpone it because of COVID. So hopefully we were supposed to go in next year. So I guess that's a bucket list too.
I have heard only great, amazing things about Africa. A few people I've known have been in the last year, and just it's definitely moving to the top of my bucket list as well. So I hope you can go sooner than later. And I think that places like France and Italy are wonderful and awesome. The reason I selected these is because they're kind of diverse destinations that I felt like such a different experience than what I have in the US. And Switzerland, I'm so glad to hear other people want to go there. It's an incredible place because it's so many epic landscapes jammed into one area. And what I love of it is it's all connected with train culture. You can take a train to anywhere in the country pretty much. And I definitely know that it's a more expensive getaway, but I've also seen these prices dropping for Switzerland for future trips. So it's something that if you do want to go, the early post-COVID times are probably going to be a good time to get a deal on something like this. The next place I really recommend everyone visit is Japan. I went last year for the first time, and what I loved most about this country is that the culture and the customs could not be more different from the United States. And I think visiting a culture so different really teaches you a lot about the world and also teaches you about what is really important to people around the world. And what I loved in Japan is the culture of taking off your shoes at the door. Every hotel had about 3 different pairs of slippers in the room. They had slippers you would use in the bathroom, slippers you would use in your hotel room, and slippers you could use when you walked around the hotel. And to us in the States, that's just not a common thing. So it was seeing all of that. And also, I really learned from Japan a culture of respect. You will hear no one ever talking on a train there on their phone. You'll see people wearing masks if they have a sniffle. And it's all built around this culture of respect. Also, you need to go to Japan purely for the restrooms because every toilet in the country has a heated seat and a bidet built in, which I think is pretty amazing. And the last place I really put on my bucket list is Ireland. I've been 3 years in a row. This was the first year I did not get to go. And I highly recommend visiting Ireland because the people are so incredible. They're so charming, they're so welcoming. And it's a place where I think anyone can feel really safe and comfortable. I took my friend there who had never left the United States, and I feel like this is a really great intro destination. If you want to go somewhere that's very different, but very easy to explore and navigate and travel safely, Ireland is definitely where I would start for sure. You can go to the next slide. And this is on that international travel. This app has saved me, and I just wanted to throw out this slide to mention it. Google Translate is incredible if you're going outside the United States because it will translate everything from restaurant menus to signs by just holding up your phone. And I have loved that. I also stayed at a castle in Italy where the owners did not speak English, and we would talk into our phones in Google Translate, and it would translate for each of us. So it was an amazing way for us to be able to communicate. And I think that the fact that this app exists should make you feel really confident to go to foreign countries where you don't speak a word of the language, because I was able to navigate the trains in Japan using Google Translate, as well as signage in Italy and around the world. So I'm happy that this technology exists and it's completely free. So definitely use it for your next trip. You can go to the next one. Now, a lot of people ask me about how I travel so much, how I'm able to afford to travel so much. And I go on some trips for work, but a lot of my trips are personal, and I am able to go on them because I'm really savvy about finding deals. And I feel like these are the secrets of travel that I wanted to share today. Google Flights is one of my #1 tips. I always use it before I go anywhere to find the lowest fares. And there's 2 ways to do this. You can go in and put your dates and destination and find a good fare. Or what I like to do is use the map feature. And this is where that bucket list of places you want to go comes really in handy. If you have 10 places you want to go and you just want to go where is the cheapest, I use the map feature on Google Flights. And this allows you to put in the dates you want to travel and will show you the cheapest fares around the world for those dates. So that's actually how I ended up going to Ireland for the first time, was I found an incredible flight sale for $400 round trip, nonstop from Salt Lake City to Ireland. And I booked it, and I planned the entire trip around that flight deal. So that is definitely a place where I start with travel. My next big trip tip is Travel Zoo. If you haven't heard of Travel Zoo yet, it's a website. It's subscription based, it's free. Their top 20 deals are sent out every week, and I can't tell you the number of trips I have booked from this website. They scour the internet to find the top 20 deals every week, and they are very thorough, and they never recommend anything that is shady. So my husband and I ended up going to Paris and Barcelona a few years ago on a trip we booked 3 days in advance on Travel Zoo, and it was $600 per person for flights, many meals, and very nice hotels for a week. And I definitely thought this was a scam, but it wasn't. Yeah. Sorry, what did you say?
That's sweet.
Yeah, it was a shocking price. And that was partially Travel Zoo's deals and also timing. One of my big tips that I want to share is the cheapest week of the year that you're going to find to travel is the first week of December, first and second week of December. And the reason for that, to travel internationally, excuse me, that's because it's between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and most people don't want to leave then. So that is how we got that incredible deal, was the time frame we were willing to travel. Obviously a little harder during the COVID times, but that is to look forward to for next year. It's a great window of time to travel, and I actually love going to places like Europe then because they have their Christmas market set up, which is just an incredible time to explore. Has anyone used Travelzoo or have questions about that one? Okay. Then the last bit on this is Hotel Tonight. This is what I use for all my staycations, as I call them, and anything last minute. They have the best hotel prices you will find on the internet for last minute trips. I really book all my hotels on this app now. And for short trips, I prefer a hotel over Airbnb, and that's purely because Airbnb has a lot of cleaning fees. So unless I'm staying for many days, I don't use Airbnb anymore. I find better deals on travels on Hotel Tonight. Like I booked a hotel in Tahoe recently that was a really incredible hotel for $40 for a night. And you'll find much cheaper rates on this website than even going through the hotels directly. And what I love about Hotel Tonight is the more you use it, the more your discounts go up. So it's a really, really great way to book. Does anyone have any questions about any of these?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go to the next
By
slide.
the way, though, Jenny, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are such great resources that I've never heard of before.
That's why I like to share them, because I think they're so amazing and so many people have never used any of them. So yeah, it's my favorite part of my job is getting to help people travel better and cheaper. So that's why I'm excited sharing all of these things. This is another one. I don't know how you feel about credit cards and more of them, but I have personally super benefited from using these credit cards. American Express Platinum is the one I have. It has an expensive fee, but what makes it worth it to me is I get free airport lounge access anytime I travel, which means dining for free at the airport, being away from the crowds in the lounge, getting to bring guests with me into the lounge for free. I get my global entry paid for by this card, which is a $100 fee. They give me $200 to use on Uber per year, $200 for airline fees like checked bags, and elite status with many hotels. So I use that card and find it's completely worth the high fee because I get more back in perks. So I think based on the amount you can travel, these cards can all be amazing. Airline credit cards are going to have a much lower fee than the Chase Sapphire or the Amex Platinum, but they'll have a few less perks. But definitely don't be scared off by the fee if you think you'll. Okay, you can go to the next one. This is how I find a lot of secrets. When I travel personally, I hate finding myself in a tourist trap. When my husband and I went to Paris, we went to the Sacre-Cœur, which is a beautiful white church on a hill there. And there is a neighborhood that the first time I went to Paris in the 90s was an amazing artistic community. When we went back almost 20 years later, after my first visit, I realized this had turned into a very fake tourist trap. And we were so disappointed that we ended up leaving and just going for a walk about the city and ending up in an incredible local neighborhood where we hung out with people from Paris and visited bars that local Parisians were in. And we just had such a more powerful, wonderful experience. And that's what I found to be true in general about travel is you don't need to see everything because it's a tourist hotspot. Those are not often going to be the best places to visit just because they're called popular. So instead, I use a bunch of different resources. My favorite is the New York Times 36 Hours Travel Stories. If you haven't read these, they basically take destinations all over the world and give you a 36-hour itinerary. And the New York Times is incredibly thorough about their research. So they will find the best coffee shop in the city, the best whatever, and the best restaurants. And I save all of these to my Google Map before I go on a trip. And then I'm ready. And some of the places that they found for me in Galway and Dublin when I was in Ireland, I just never, ever would have found on my own without their stories. And they were the best part of my trip. So other resources are Trip Savvy. They do a ton of great content about secrets. Outdoor Sports Guide is the magazine I work for. We try to share secrets. I just did a story on the secrets of Zion in Utah. And then asking a local. When I am in a place, the first thing I seek out is the local coffee shop or the local outdoor store. And I just ask them what I can't miss. And there has been so many things that I've discovered just because I bothered to ask a local. And my last tip on this page is an app called Swarm. It's free. I use it to not only track where I've been, but where I want to go. You can check into places and create kind of a private map of where you've been so you can remember things when you go back to them. But you can also use it to track popular things in a city you're planning to go to. Does anyone have questions about any of these? Okay, you can go to the next one. So I want to throw in some more gear. This is for those international trips you might take in the future. These have been 3 items that I take on every trip. This Osprey Ozone duplex bag is one that goes with me everywhere because it's a carry-on backpack with another backpack that snaps onto the outside. So when I only carry this on trips, and I will pack all my clothes and everything in that bigger pack on the front, and I will unbuckle that and throw that in the overhead bin and tuck my little backpack with my laptop in it under my seat. And it just means everything's on my back, super easy. Osprey also makes rolling varieties of this pack if you don't want to carry that weight on your back. But I find this snap-off style is really efficient and allows me to never pay a checked bag fee, which is great. And also never check bags because I have lost many. When I went to Ireland, they lost our bags overnight. And literally the guy from the airport with the luggage had to deliver our luggage to us while we were at a pub in Ireland. So avoid that, don't check. And then these Spectre cubes are something I take on every trip, whether it's local or far away. This just packs everything in a categorical way, shrinks it down really small by compressing it. So you have more room and you can find things you want easily. And my last one is this Manta eye mask. A lot of cheap eye masks tend to press on your eyeballs and you can't sleep. This one doesn't. It encapsulates around your eyes, and it's allowed me to actually sleep on international flights. So I highly recommend it. It's worth it over a cheap eye mask. Okay, you can go to the next one. And if anyone has any questions about gear or a certain type of item you're looking for that you need a recommendation on, please let me know. This next page is just about some of the best practices for travel that I think can improve your travel experience overall. So my first one is TSA PreCheck / global entry. Do any of you have that by chance?
I do not.
No, my husband used to.
Yeah. I think and I think people maybe don't know how affordable it really is. $86 for 5 years breaks down to less than $20 a year, or just over, yeah, about 20 something dollars a year, which for me, to avoid going through the scanner line and the long lines at the airport, even if I only flew twice a year, I would use it. And if you're gonna ever go on an international trip, I would recommend the upgrade to global entry because most people don't know this. Global entry is only $100 and it includes TSA PreCheck. So for only a few dollars more, you're going to get both benefits. And global entry is great because when you fly back into the States, you can have an hour or 2 wait sometimes through immigration. I don't know if anyone's experienced this. I certainly have. And it allows you to skip that line. So very, very worth it. What was that?
I said nice.
Yeah, so worth it. And if you're looking for a freer alternative that you don't need to sign up for in advance, there is Mobile Passport. This is an app my dad actually told me about because he was a frequent cruiser. Mobile Passport allows you to upload your passport info to an app for when you land or come back from a cruise, for instance. And it also will give you special line access and move you to essentially often the diplomat line or another special line where you can buzz past everyone and not have to fill out the paper forms. And it's amazing because it's free, but so few people use it. I have often been at airports before I got global entry and would be the only person in line using Mobile Passport. So you will definitely feel like a big winner when you're traveling with this app. And global entry, TSA, if those are things you're planning to get for a future trip, now's a great time to do that because you have to sign up for an appointment. And those appointments right now can take 3 or 4 months to get. So it's definitely worth planning ahead for. And I will say it's cut my wait time in lines at the airport down to less than a minute for most airports, even a busy airport. So well worth the money. The next best practice tip is packing really light. Maybe this is an obvious one, but I have definitely been guilty of bringing really large backpacks or rolling bags when I was traveling through Ireland. And my friend and I were just irritated the entire time because the cobblestones and a lot of trains in Europe don't have elevators, they just have stairs. And so lugging a bag up and down all those stairs turns really terrible really quickly. So that is why I recommend the backpack, is to avoid that. And there are even a lot of bags by people like Osprey that are backpacks that have wheels. So when you're in that train situation, you have the opportunity to carry it like a backpack, but you can also wheel it when you're in the airport. And then my next tip in this category is leaving no trace. We've seen in the outdoor world a lot of people traveling to national and state parks who've never done so before. And what's really challenging about this is people don't quite know the rules. So there's a lot of garbage being left, trails being closed, people inappropriately using products that are not safe to use in the rivers, etc. So I think it's just really important reminder, always leave no trace wherever you go outside. Any question about best practices? Anything else people want to know on that topic? Of something I always.
You mentioned packing light, which is yeah, always the goal, but it's hard to do. Do you have any tips to do that? Like if you're going somewhere you really don't know what the weather's going to be, and or if it's going to be cold and you got to pack a coat and that sort of thing. Like, it just seems like it's hard to pack light.
Oh, it's so hard. And I have definitely learned this in a terrible way from experience repeatedly. My first trip to Ireland, my friend and I thought it would be much colder than it was. And we brought these giant bags full of clothing that we never wore and just literally lugged around the country, changing hotels every day, staying in hostels with, 4 floors. So we had to lug our bags up. It was really miserable. And it gave me a good lesson. So what I learned from that is, one, you've really got to narrow down in the shoe category. I really strictly limit myself to 2 to 3 pairs of shoes now. And I try to go with one color scheme if that's important. So if I'm packing brown boots, I'm going to pick things that go with brown boots, not black boots, obviously, just one color scheme, one theme. I go with a lot of layering. Scarves are amazing and everyone in Europe wears them. So you'll just feel like you fit right in if you're traveling internationally. So that's something I do all the time. Those compression bags I recommend allow me to pack a lot more in a bag than would be appropriate normally. But because it's pressed down so small, you can fit a lot. And I really love that. And then I do thoroughly check all the weather reports for each city I'm going to be in. And last, I like to put everything out on my bed that I'm going to pack. And then I like to cut that in half, because I tend to get really enthusiastic about what I want to bring and what I think I need to bring. And I'll realize, okay, you've pulled out 10 t-shirts. You don't need 10, you need 4. And so then I will cut down from there, because if you just start putting everything in the bag before you've re-examined it, you're going to end up with way too much. So definitely pack half of what you plan to pack, I would say, is a good baseline. Does anyone have any more questions on that topic? You can go to the next slide then, Erin. These are a couple other items I wanted to recommend. This Luzon bag on the left is just a really affordable travel backpack. And what I love about these is they flip inside out and pack in their own pocket, and they actually pack down totally flat. And whether you're going to be hiking on your trip or whether you just might be shopping at a local market, I bring this bag on every single trip I go on. And I love it because it takes up virtually no space, but when I need it, I can use it. So if you bought too many souvenirs, you have an extra bag, or yeah, just if you're going to be out shopping for the day, you don't want to carry a purse, you'd rather have something that will allow you to fit a few more items. You're going to those holiday markets. This is just my favorite piece of gear. And what I love about this company and their mission is that they use scrap material. So every bag looks different because they're using the scraps left behind from other companies to make these. And they also give back to charity with everything you purchase. So they just have a really powerful mission that I support too. And then the next item is the RFID wallet. Does everyone know about the RFID scanning technology? Just curious.
No.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's basically people at an airport or a public place can scan through your wallet and steal your identity and use your credit cards without actually physically having the card. And I thought that this was something people were being dramatic about. And I was flying about a year ago through Denver, connecting to go to the East Coast. And I got to the East Coast and my credit card started getting charges in Wyoming. And this is exactly what had happened to me. Someone had scanned through my wallet at the airport and had gotten my credit card number. Yeah. Yeah. So it is absolutely a real thing. Sorry, what was that?
I just said, oh my, I
Thing.
can't even believe that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
really
that
thought it was drama.
that kind of explains, I guess, when you get some ID like what do you call those new licenses that are like serve as passports kind of thing.
Yes.
Mhm.
And when they hand it to you, it comes in this envelope that you can keep it in, and it has some sort of a metal inside the envelope. It's very light metal, and it's flexible and everything, but you can't scan it because of the metal.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. And they do that with your global entry card now too. They'll send it to you in this RFID safe envelope. And I love this company PackSafe because they make wallets for that too. So I have my passport in an RFID safe wallet that I keep it in when I'm traveling. And you can keep all your credit cards in those as well. And that just doesn't allow anyone to scan through it. And beyond the RFID wallet, PackSafe has really amazing gear that is slash proof. So they have purses, backpacks, anything that you can't cut through that you can lock, and you can lock to a chair. And also all the pockets in their bags have that RFID technology in it. So if you're looking for a bag for travel, I highly recommend PackSafe. And you can even just buy a purse from them that you can use every day that has that RFID built into the purse too. So I love that company and everything they do. And I definitely have been robbed in Europe. I've been pickpocketed. And so it's still a rampant problem, especially in places like Italy. And so I really recommend having these products. And then the last one in this category is the Goal Zero Flip. I personally take all my photos on my phone. I use my phone for navigation when I'm traveling internationally. I have T-Mobile and they have free international calling, texting, etc. So I use my phone like normal when I'm traveling the world now. And it kills the battery because it's searching for different networks. And so I bring this Goal Zero Flip everywhere I go, and it allows me to charge up with just a cord on the road or when I'm out hiking, anything like that. So I never have to worry about my phone dying, which is really important because when you're in a hotel or in a foreign city or place or in the woods or in a national park exploring and you have a dead phone, it can be hard to find your way back. So definitely a great piece of gear and very affordable. It's something like $20 or $30. Anyone have any question about other travel gear that you might be looking for or think you need that you have questions about? Okay, you can go to the next one. This is something I wanted to share. I love this quote because you'd be surprised at the amount of times that people tell me not to go places, that they didn't like XYZ place, that place is not safe, that I shouldn't go alone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I rarely agree with these people. I said in this corner box about Philly, it is my favorite city in America. I love the vibes, but there are so many people who tell you it is a terrible, dangerous, unsafe place. And I've never found that to be true. So I just think in travel, ignore the naysayers. If you want to go to Morocco, you should do that. Of course, I recommend doing any trip in a safe way, knowing the local customs and where places that are safe to travel alone, etc. But I would never say don't go somewhere because someone tells you it's terrible, because they are usually wrong or afraid, honestly, to travel. Uh, and then go to the next slide. There we go. And yeah, that's the crux of my tips, but I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions about traveling in general or specific trips you're looking to take, anything like that. I'm happy to answer. It is my favorite thing to help people travel better. So feel free to ask anything.
I got a question then.
Uh-huh.
My name's Roger. My wife and I, about 5 years ago, started touring the West on a motorcycle, 2 up on a bike.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learned the hard way how to pack light. I only get so much space on a motorcycle to pack. And so, trial and error got us down to where we could, comfortably travel for, 4 or 5 days with very minimal amount. My question is, we like taking back roads. We're allergic to freeways, so we like taking the 2-lane highways that go through the little towns.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find fun places that are in the middle of whatever, Idaho, that is just a fun place to go?
Oh, that is
Wyoming or Utah or wherever.
That is an awesome trip. And I too am like you. I love small towns. I love finding those cute little places. And so that is absolutely where my Google Map trick comes really in handy. So I like to look at the route I'm going to be taking before I go on a trip and see what towns I'm going to be passing through, and either Google those topics or just pull up Google Maps and see what pops up and saving those. So saving those is like, hey, I know I'm going to pass this town and there's this great cheese shop on the side of the road. We got to go there. So I will definitely build a big list before any trip. And I also download those maps offline on Google. There's a setting in the corner of your Google Maps that says download offline maps. I'll do that before I go on any trip, so I have access to my maps if I lose service and can still pull up that information. And also I'll look into like tourism sites of those small towns even. Like you can Google visit Telluride or visit whatever and see some of their top picks, and I'll add those to my list as well. And that's a really good way to kind of plan ahead. If you're not going to know in advance which roads you're going down, I kind of will do the ask a local trick, where and this is also my trick of like, a coffee shop is the best place to get information ever. Even if you're not a coffee drinker, if you go in for a snack or whatever, like they are a wealth of information of where the best things to do and see. And I often just say like, hey, I have 2 hours here. I have a day here. What is the thing I have to do? And I did that throughout my trip to Yosemite and found some trails and sites that locals told me about that I just never would have known about. So those are kind of my tips on that topic. Does that help?
Yes. Let me ask that question in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, I don't know how we did this, but we got on the subject of covered bridges. Well, the state of Oregon has like 55 covered bridges. And so we spent the whole summer driving through Oregon, finding all the covered bridges to take a picture of the bridge, have the bridge with my bike in the same picture. And we spent 3 weekends, like 13, 12 days doing this. And it was the most fun we had in the summer. Unfortunately, the state of Washington has 5 covered bridges. So I can't do it in the state of Washington. So now we're trying to figure out what the next fun thing to go find is.
Ooh.
So I guess that's my question. Some people say, well, I ride to national parks and I do that. But we like the covered bridges because they're in the middle of nowhere. Nobody was there. It was all 2-lane roads most of the ways. It was just fun. So now I'm trying to figure out how to find the next fun thing to do.
I do have 2 ideas for you on that. One is Atlas Obscura. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's a book and an app, and it literally tells you all the weird roadside attractions and different destinations. Okay. And I love it. I have the book and it's really fun, but I also use the app. And so you can say like, hey, I'm in Washington, like tell me about weird stuff that I have to see. And that could help you find your next thing of stuff you want to bag. And there also is an app that's name is escaping me, but it's a road trip attraction kind of map. And I mentioned some of those like Soon and I Wish where you can track things like that. But this roadside attraction app that you can find will help you find those things that you could see that maybe other people don't know about yet. And so that would be a really fun thing if you're doing motorcycle tourism, because these are all sites that are along major highways or back roads like Route 66, a lot of stuff along there, but things in Washington that would be really cool to see.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Anyone have more questions or different topics?
I think, I mean, I like want to travel more, but a lot of the times it's the pets that hold me back because we're empty nesters now for the most part. But do you have any tips for traveling with pets? I think a lot of national parks don't allow pets on trails and whatnot. At least Rainier doesn't, and that's kind of frustrating. So I don't know. Do you have any tips for pets?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm working on a story on pets and traveling right now. And there are a couple things that I think are really great tips. One for national parks is it is really a pain that you can't bring your pets on a lot of trails. But what I'm seeing at parks, like outside Zion, there is one, and I think outside Yosemite, are these pet check-in facilities. So essentially, you can bring your dog to doggy daycare for the day. And like there's some trails in Yosemite that you can take your pet on, the paved trails. So you could do Yosemite for the day with your dog, and then the next day when you want to hike or go somewhere that dogs can't go, you can check them in for the day to this pet facility. So I think that's great. And I know the one in Zion is right outside the park gate, and you could check them for 2 hours, 5 hours, overnight, whatever, but it would give you that time where you can bring your pet, but you can get a little break from them to explore. So that would be the first tip. The second would be there are so many pet friendly hotels now. You would be surprised. One just opened in Utah. In southern Utah, there's a famous animal sanctuary called Best Friends, and they just opened their own hotel called the Roadhouse. And it's not just pet friendly, it's pet centric, they call it. And this hotel is built for pet owners in mind. It has a dog park, a splash pad, it has pet beds built into every room. They give you treats for your dogs, and they'll even babysit and walk your dog if you go and do some things without them. So I think those are some ways where you could actually incorporate your pet into travel instead of having to leave them behind or not being able to do all the things you wanted. And same for some of those glamping destinations. Some of those are pet friendly too. So you could kind of have like that camping experience without sleeping on the ground in a tent, but you could bring Fido along. Does that help?
Yeah, that's where did you say that one hotel was? It was
It's called the Roadhouse, and it's in Kanab, Utah. Yeah,
okay.
I'm seeing
That's
pet-friendly hotels pop up all over the country, though. It's really a booming trend, and some of them have like a little extra fee that you'll have to pay. Some have rules of like you can't leave the pet alone. Other hotels have these pet babysitters where they'll walk your dog or check on your dog for you. So I think that's, and I'm sure there are some in Washington and Oregon as well, too.
oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, it doesn't sound like there is, but I just want to say my mind is even blown away. I have learned so much stuff today and so many great tips. And it's just been, this hour has been a wealth of information for me. And I'm like, I can't even wait till things kind of go back to normal per se and do some of these trips and travels. And I loved your bucket list, Jenny, because Japan's always been on there for me. And I also have to say that Ireland is a fabulous place to visit because it's really the people there that make you want to keep coming back, besides it being a beautiful country. But the people are so engaging there that it's just like you've walked into your family. You're just hanging out with your family. They're so nice. But
There are better people than Irish people. I agree with you.
but thank you so very much for your time today. And again, just a lot of information that was very, very eye-opening to me. And we will certainly share out this slide with everybody and the presentation as well, the video recorded presentation. And, thank you for your time today, Jenny, really. And thank you, Roger and Robert and Linda for being here today with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you do have additional questions about traveling, I have my email at the bottom of this slide. You can go to my website if you want to find specific stories about anything, but I do love to help people plan and get ideas. So please feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank
You guys
you.
have a great weekend. And thanks again, Jenny.
Great. Thank you. Have a great weekend, you all.
You
Bye.
too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.